Hello, 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 and welcome once again to another episode of the Business and Expert Forum. If you are out there, I just want to welcome you to the show, to the program. Well, Business and Expert Forum, just basically just to explain what this program is about. This is a platform for developing people. Basically, what we do is develop people and businesses through knowledge sharing. All we do is to share knowledge. Okay, we highlight progress and achievements made by people willing to go the extra mile to improve their lifestyles and lifestyles of people around them by discussing some of the strategies that they have adopted. We also use the forum to bring in experts, people who are specialists in their field, in their respective field, and they come in and share information and knowledge on everyday topical issues such as technology, finance, medicine, engineering, entertainment, social media, the law, just to name a few. So if you're someone who wants to go either into business or improve your business processes or gain knowledge, or if you want to develop your passion and talent into a business venture, then this forum is for you. We are live every 2 weeks on Mondays at 7 p.m. British Summer Time. And please remember to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell so that you get notification when there's a new episode. Right. Okay. So tonight we have with us Mrs. Eunice Champon, a young lady who graduated with a law degree in 2012 and subsequently went ahead and qualified as a solicitor in 2017 and has therefore been actively practicing as a solicitor for almost 5 years. She is currently a legal partner at BWF Solicitors, a feat she achieved before the age of 30. And she has a very interesting hobby of bringing up her two children and spending time with her husband. Eunice is here tonight as an expert in the field of law and is going to help us navigate the difficult situations of domestic abuse and relationship breakdown. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Eunice Champon.
Hello.
Okay, Eunice, you're welcome to the program. You're welcome to Business and Experts Forum.
Thank
How are
you
you today?
so much.
How's your day been? Good?
Oh, yes, it's been a good day. I mean, we had a gloomy weather in the morning, but thankfully the sun is out, making it all much better.
Okay, that's good. Okay, right. So we're gonna have a lot of questions for you, Eunice, and I believe that the audience will have a lot of questions they want you to answer for them. So what we'll do is
Yeah.
that I have my own questions that I have for you, but then I'll also kind of intersperse that with the questions from the audience, just so we make sure that we are capturing what they want to know as well. So let's start off straight away with just a couple of things about you. So for someone who with a career aspiration of becoming a lawyer, could you briefly, explain to them what the journey has been for you in becoming a lawyer solicitor?
Okay. So for me, I sort of made this decision very early on when I was in my youth. So I remember I was watching TV at one point and I was struck by how Tony Blair was so charismatic in the way that he was speaking and how forward thinking he was. And I was just like, I like this man. There must be something interesting about him. And I was probably like 15 at the time. And I just realized, you know what? This man studied to be a lawyer and then
Hmm.
ended up in politics and then doing what he did best. And he was the prime minister. So I said to myself, I think I'm going to do law. So I said this pretty early on whilst I was in secondary school. So I went on to study law at A levels. They usually would say that it's better to do another subject and then study law at university. But for me, I wanted to know whether law was truly for me. And so I decided to study anyway at sixth form. So I went to a girls' Catholic sixth form, even though it was something that I was not used to because I've always been in a mixed school, in a mixed setting. But I thought, do you know what, it's time to be serious. I need to really see if this is for me. And so I went to Paloma Sixth Form and I studied law at Paloma Sixth Form. And I ended up doing really well in it. And I thought, okay, um, actually, this might be something for me. So I got a B in it, and then I went on to study law at the University of Greenwich. So I have an LLB honors,
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I went on to get a 2-1, and then I decided, you know what, maybe it might be better for me to find somewhere I can practice because, of course, it's all well and good studying it, but it's also another thing practicing it. And
Okay.
as most people who are looking to be in practice firm or to practice law in one way or the other with law, it's very competitive to get training contracts in a law firm.
Okay.
So it was a constant struggle whether I wanted to practice in a law firm or I wanted to do in-house legal work because there are a lot of companies that desire somebody who has practiced or has studied law. And I decided I really didn't want to do in-house. I really wanted to practice. I wanted to get my hands in. And so even before I decided to make that decision, I had previously done work experience or work placement
Okay.
with high street firms such as Balam Law Partnership. And so I knew or I had a feel of what working in a law firm was like, and I thought that suited me better because I like interaction with clients. I like the fact that you get to know them personally and get to know their cases well
Mm-hmm.
enough. And so I said to myself, I prefer to be in a law firm rather than to be in a company
Corporate
somewhere
world.
doing
Yeah.
law work. Of course,
Okay.
as time went by, I applied to BWF in, I think that was sometime in 2013 or sometime in 2012. And so I was interviewed by Mr. Bernard Owusu
Mm.
himself, and I started working in BWF at, I think, mid January 2013. So I've been working with BWF since January of 2013. And so, of course, I've been here for more than 8 years.
That's good.
I'm still, I'm
Right.
still
Okay.
here.
That's really good. I mean, it's a very interesting thing to pick from what you've just said. You started really early. You were my very focused. You knew exactly what you wanted to do, and you went straight at it. I was struck by the bit that you said about Tony Blair because does that mean you were kind of probably aiming to become a prime minister in the future?
I was aiming to do politics actually, and I thought to myself, do I still want to do politics? Because now I look at politics in different lights. Because I actually thought, do you know what? I'm going to do law so that I can go into politics probably later on. It might happen sometime later on when I'm retired, but I'm not sure now.
Okay, that's interesting. We are going to be watching that space units because
Yeah.
I probably going to be, I don't want to go there, but probably going to be the first lady or whatever prime minister in the UK, and who knows. Okay, so you know what, we are here basically to discuss how to deal with disputes relating to domestic abuse and relationship breakdown. So for our listeners or for our audience, can you tell us what will be classified as domestic abuse? So, for instance, if I come home and my wife slaps me and apologizes later, would you consider that as domestic? So, basically, explain to us
Yes,
what
yes.
constitutes domestic abuse.
Yes, that's fine. So I know that a lot of people will find this very sensitive. So I would say, of course, that this is just information that I am giving out. This should be in no means taken as legal advice because, of course, different people will go through different scenarios than any scenario that I would give on this program. So, of course, if anybody feels that this is an issue that is prominent in their own lives and they need to discuss it or they need assistance in some way or form. Obviously, I'll put my details out at the end of the program and then, of course, you can get in contact then.
That's correct.
So, in terms of your question, what is domestic abuse? Um, People would know domestic violence because that's what it was previously known as domestic violence. And then, of course, in 2018, Theresa May made some announcements in terms of that changing because usually when you think of violence, you're thinking about the physical violence of somebody obviously causing you harm or pain in some way or form. But then, of course, we now have domestic abuse, which only does not include physical abuse or physical violence as we previously knew. It can include threatening and coercive behavior, for example. So if somebody is controlling what you do, where you
Hmm.
go, at what time you leave the house, what you do with your time, all of those things count as threatening and coercive behavior. And then, of course, you can also have emotional abuse. And so, if somebody is saying to you, well, you're good for nothing, then you can't amount to anything, and they are constantly putting you down, that also can be known as emotional abuse. And you also have now what is very prominent, online abuse. So when we say online abuse, it's not just maybe somebody coming onto your phone and then sending you a text message. It includes other social media platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I mean, there are so many of them these days I can't even keep up. So any form of online abuse where people are sending you abusive messages and constantly harassing you is also part of domestic abuse now.
Hmm.
And then you also have financial abuse, which
Okay.
is not even common. So financial or economic abuse, where the other party is controlling your money and
Okay.
controlling how you spend money that has been given to you. For instance, if you're not working, they control every aspect of how your finances or what your finances are used for. So that is also another example of what domestic abuse is. And
Okay.
then you also have people who go through sexual abuse. So it's not
Okay.
just the physical hitting of the person, but also the fact that somebody is telling you you are not your own self and I can sleep with you whenever I choose to, and you have no control over when I choose to do so. And so that is also another form of
Okay.
abuse. So we
Okay.
have all these different forms of abuse now, and people are becoming more aware. Where
Okay.
previously you wouldn't even want to report such crimes because you think, well, they will not believe me, especially if you're a married couple. But now, of course, you have the case where even if you're a married couple and this is happening,
Hmm.
there are agencies available that you can speak to. It
Okay.
doesn't necessarily have to be the police. You can
Okay.
call any of these agencies and they can definitely give you help over the phone. And as time goes by, obviously, they can give you shelter. Um, there's so many of them online nowadays. If
Okay.
you don't have access to internet, for instance, because it's being controlled by this person. When
Okay.
you take your child to school, these agencies such as schools are also available to give you support where necessary.
Okay. Okay. That's very really interesting because you kind of highlighted areas where normally we would not consider as abuse, but it's interesting the financial abuse. I mean, when you talk about domestic abuse, a lot of people think about what happens between a husband and wife or civil partners in the home, or what happens maybe in bed or and things like that when you are forced to do what you don't want to do. But highlighting some aspects of it, which is really important for our viewers. Just before I ask the next question, I just want to inform our audience that if you have any questions for Eunice, please remember to put them in the chat. What we'll try and do today is that we'll try and highlight the questions from the audience very early, because I know there will be a few questions coming through. So if you have any questions, please put them in early so we can start focusing on some of the questions early. Okay, so Eunice, what does the law say about dealing with children in the event of domestic abuse? This is basically what happens in the home, between in within families. What does the law say about dealing with children in that respect?
Okay. So, of course, when you talk about children, you know how society views children. Children are seen to be the vulnerable ones, the weaker ones. And so, of course, when you are in a home and you have children who are under the age of 18 specifically, and they can see the abuse that is going on. And of course, you believe that they are also at risk because maybe the perpetrator is not only being sort of abusive towards you, but is also being abusive towards the children in the home as well. And so, usually, when it comes to children and how you can secure them, whether you are married or unmarried, the law is at least on your side. And so when you talk about domestic abuse, most of the time people do not know that there are court orders that they could get in terms of having that person be removed from the
Mm.
premises or having that person stay away from them and their children for a period of time. And that means that you may have to get a non-molestation order or including a non-molestation order and occupation order. And so when you look at our Family Law Act of 1996 and you look at the section 42 of our Family Law Act, it talks specifically about getting an order in terms of non-molestation. So of course, if you are having to say to the court that you are facing some form of abuse, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's coercive, whether you are facing threatening and intimidating behavior, whatever it is, of course, you have to specify that in your application form when you are making the application to the court for a non-molestation order. And
Okay.
of course, if you are stating all of these things, there has to be a statement of case or some form of witness statement from the victim of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is the mother, for instance, who is facing this and thinks that the children are also at risk of such harm or abuse, you state in your statement categorically that this person has been abusive towards me and is also abusive towards the children.
Mm-hmm.
They can see what is going on and it affects their day-to-day living. They probably have told their teachers at school that they are facing all of this at home and they don't like the way mommy, for instance, is being treated at home and it's affecting them psychologically. So you state all of these things within your statement.
Okay.
And most of the time, people who are facing such domestic abuse will make this application without notice. When you say without notice, it means that without making the other party aware
Okay.
that they are making this application to the court. And so, of course, once you've put in the non-molestation order, the court will look at the reasons why you have made this order without notice and when it is seen or assessed that the risk is high. So sometimes, like I'm saying, the children will speak up when they are not comfortable. Their
Mm-hmm.
teachers will be aware. Their teachers will also question you, the parent who is being abused.
Mm-hmm.
And getting evidence from the schools is quite easy when the children are outspoken about these things. And
Okay.
so, very easily, if you even contact the school to say, I need a letter from you stating what the children have told you and what is going on at home, I'm pretty sure that the school would be able to provide you with some form of letter to state categorically what has been told to them by the children and how it is affecting the children
Mm-hmm.
in their day-to-day living or in their school work and the rest of it, in their interactions with their friends and the rest of it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the school is very hands-on. So sometimes, before you know it, they've started involving social services. And
Okay.
so
Okay.
at any given time, they would inform you that because of what is going on, they had to involve social services in regards to the child's interaction and what is going on at home.
Okay.
So these agencies definitely will be able to provide you with evidence that you can even include when making your non-molestation order. And so, of course, when it comes to children, the court is very aware of the fact that the best interest of the child has to be made paramount or it has to be put first.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, when they are looking at these applications, they are thinking, if these children are at risk, serious risk of harm, then there is no way in which we can allow this to continue. And
Okay.
usually, a non-molestation order, if assessed by the
Hmm.
judge, would usually give a duration of about a year, for which time it means that that person will not be able to come close to you, the children, to or say harass you. Because of course, if you are in breach of a court order,
Yeah.
that is contempt of court, and you can also be put in prison for that.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. So
if
just before you carry on, so I know the you have a lot to say about that, but when you talk about children,
yeah,
okay, so we're looking at a case where maybe the child is, I mean, the child could be below 16 or 18.
mm,
I mean, in the UK, I think that when children are below 16 or 18, I don't know what it is when it comes to domestic abuse, how we kind of the threshold for the where what we define as a child.
yeah,
But if the child is 18 or 20,
mm,
would they still be considered as a child? What I mean is that can they also apply it as an, if they're classified as an adult or young adult at the time,
okay.
can they independently apply to the court against the offender, the offending parent?
Okay, so if, for instance, the child is under the age of 16, usually if the child has not moved out of the house and the child is still at home, that child is still considered a child. And you, of course, made mention of a child who is above the age of 16. So, for instance, if the child is above the age of 16 and is still living at home, so it's still dependent on the parents, for instance, that child will still be considered a child for the
Okay.
purposes of domestic abuse up until the age of 20. So it's also something that, of course, they are able to do as children, because if they are still in the home, still dependent on both parents or one parent, and the parent is the perpetrator of the abuse, then of course they can also make an application to the court for
Mm.
the courts to consider whether to grant non-molestation order for
Okay.
the child.
Okay. Okay. That's very interesting because I mean I think you're right. So far they may be considered as a young adult, but they are
Mm.
living still under the same roof with you,
Yes,
and but they can still go ahead and make an
yes,
application on in their own right
right,
as an
yes,
individual.
yes.
Okay, so just to remind our audience, please, if you have any questions for Eunice, please remember to put them in the chat, and we will try and highlight the questions that come through today, as many as possible. Okay, let me just ask you this question before we move into relationship breakdown. Does the law favor one gender in an event of an abuse? So does the law is the law skewed more towards women and saying women are the weaker sex, if you want to put it that way? So the law will favor them more than the male.
I think that a lot of people assume that because women are the ones that are more vulnerable or seem to be weaker, they are the ones that will be more, should I say, likely to be favored by the
Yeah,
law. But I don't think it's necessarily the case, because we know we live in a very liberal country
and
now.
some wives beat their husbands too. You see.
Yes.
So that's why I'm asking the question. So yeah, if your wife
Of
beats your
course.
husband, obviously when you go to court, she's the offender. I'm the victim.
Of course, and it does happen. There are some women that beat their husbands, and
Yeah.
I was, should I say, surprised to know. I don't know if you know Ross Kemp from
Yes. Yes.
EastEnders.
Ross Kemp. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, what? His wife abuses him.
Mm.
I couldn't even open my mouth, because I was looking at this woman who is a very middle class woman and has a good job, and I'm thinking, you beating a man.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, but it
Yeah.
does happen,
Okay.
like you say it. And obviously, we have same-sex relationships. So, of course, if there are couples within a same-sex relationship and there is abuse going on, it's not specifically to that gender per se.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you have a lot of statistics proving that. it is not necessarily on a balance of equal proportions, or there is a majority of women who are domestically abused. It is to do with the fact that, of course, the perpetrators will normally be those that will, let's say, victimize the woman. So
Okay.
um, you don't have a high proportion, let's say, being just women, and you don't have an overly high proportion being men either. So
Okay.
it is on balance, let's say, a certain category of women who would report that they are currently undergoing domestic abuse. And
Hmm.
then you also have men who also would report that they are undergoing domestic abuse, even though it's not common for men to do so,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
some do report that this is the case.
Okay. I mean, this has been you in recent times because of the pandemic. We've had a lot of cases of reported
Yeah,
domestic violence and abuse in the homes. Unfortunately, this seems to be happening because people are beginning to spend more time with their
yeah,
spouses or their
people
civil
partners.
partners. So let's talk a little bit more about relationship breakdown.
Mm,
In the event of a relationship breakdown, okay, what legal rights do the individual spouses have when there is a breakdown? So if you look at it, and let's look at the typical case of a husband and wife,
yeah.
and there is a relationship breakdown. What individual rights do they have? I mean, if you can do that briefly, so that just to tell us, as a wife, these are the rights you have. As a husband, these are the rights that you have. What are the individual rights?
Okay. So usually, of course, when we talk about relationship breakdowns, not everybody may be married to their partner, and so
Okay.
you will definitely have those that are cohabiting, and they would be living together with the partner for a number of years, and maybe they have not committed themselves to marriage. Of course, when there is a relationship breakdown and, for instance, there are children involved in the relationship, that would mean that, of course, the children will also have to be looked after in terms of that relationship breakdown. Of course, when it comes to partners who are married or couples who are married, it's easier to say that it's better to get a divorce and then obviously have to deal with the financial aspects later on.
Okay.
But when it comes to couples who are not married, the law is not so, should I say, favorable in that sense because,
Okay.
of course, um, the law has been structured in such a way that it is mainly focused on those that are spouses. But then you also have those that are not married having some form of legal remedy or recourse when it comes to relationship breakdown and them having to get the other party to, of course, make some contributions if they did own any properties, for instance, together. When it comes to financial assets, of course, that is usually with married couples and how their assets can be divided amongst themselves. And so, of course, when it comes to those that are cohabitees or those that are not married, it will mean that they will, first of all, if they had children, maybe seek some recompense from child maintenance services so that the other party is able to make payments to them in regards to the children. And then you also have people who have signed on in terms of being joint tenants in regards to a property they may have bought together. If they were not joint tenants and they had shares, so for instance, the husband or the cohabitee partner made some um, deposit, let's say, deposit in terms of the mortgage. So maybe they made a payment of, let's say, £8,000 in terms of the deposit, and then the woman coughed up some £12,000 in terms of the deposit. Of course, that's not an equal share in terms of the monies they have put together in terms of the deposit. But if they are able to show that this is the amount of money they have put down in for the deposit, and they have actually put on the title deed that this is how much um, they are entitled to, because anybody who has put down a deposit has a beneficial interest in the property.
Right.
And so if it is stated clearly on the title deed that this is the amount of share that we would divide the property by if we were to sell it, for instance, then it will be clear on the title deed. If not, then that would mean that, of course, they will have to look at the contributions made towards the property in the duration of their relationship. And that having been said, that would mean that, of course, now the court will have to consider an application by the uh, applicant who is saying, well, we know that you have made certain contributions, and that would usually be in terms of people who have made some significant contributions. So I'm not just talking about just paying money towards the mortgage, for instance, if you didn't make any deposit in terms of the sale, I mean, the purchase of the property, then of course it would mean that maybe you made some payments towards the mortgage itself, or you made some changes, renovations to the house. You paid for the bathroom to be refurbished, or you paid for the kitchen to be renovated. And those sort of contributions, of course, looking at case law and the Act, which is our Talata, which is
Mm-hmm.
um, one of the acts that we usually use for cohabitees or people who are not married, so partners who are not married, and we want to be able to have a say in the share of the property. Of course, if you have made some financial contribution and you can evidence that to the court that you have made some financial contributions in terms of the property. So it's not just saying you went to do the shopping or you were taking care of the children.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be substantial contribution or substantial
Okay.
financial contribution to the mortgage or to the
Well,
property
gracias.
for the court to consider whether you really and truly have a beneficial interest in the share or in the sale of the property. And
Okay.
so that puts those that are not married in a very tight corner, because imagine even the fact that you are somebody who looks after the kids and maybe you are not working and you are having to literally spend all your time at home doing the housework and the rest of it, and then only to be told that because you are not married, so unfortunately, if you haven't made any financial contribution towards the mortgage per se or towards the property, then it would mean that you will not be considered for any other um, financial contributions in terms of that relationship breaking down. And so
Okay.
the result will be maybe having to get some child maintenance for the children per se, and
Okay.
then having to start afresh basically in terms of that.
Okay.
But where you have couples that are married and obviously can show that they have been married for some time, there are different scenarios or different factors that the court will have to consider once a couple have put in an application for financial order. That's what we call it. So
Okay.
in the process of a divorce, or sometimes some people will have the divorce finalized and think, oh no, I actually want something from this relationship, so let me make an application to the court for a financial order. Usually, if the divorce has been finalized before making an application for financial order, that means that you will lose out on the other spouse's pension. So
Okay.
usually the pension will be something that you will not have any say in favoring the divorce has been finalized and you are now going for a
Okay, so
financial.
I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to make you go into pensions because we'll probably be talking about pensions and wills later today. But
Mm-mm.
and obviously because of I'm conscious of time as well because this program is only for 45 minutes. We're looking to do 45
Yes.
minutes. Just before we ask the next question, I just want to remind our audience about who we have coming next on this program. The next episode of Business and Experts Forum is on the 30th of August. Yeah, that's 2 weeks from today. And we're going to be featuring a doctor, a medical doctor, Dr. Abina Osela. And she is a consultant clinical neurophysiologist and has made a maximum a lot of contribution in research work in motor neuron disease. And we'll be discussing health, as I said, and focusing on the challenges that families and the global health system face as a result of the pandemic and how best to deal with those challenges. So do join us on the 30th of August, that is 2 weeks from today, to gain more knowledge on health during and after the pandemic. You may not want to miss this opportunity. So we'll be talking to Dr. Abinos Lelai in 2 weeks' time. Okay, and also please remember to subscribe to the channel. And I've had a question thrown at me. How do you subscribe to the channel? Please, when you're watching the channel, you see that red thing that says subscribe. If you click on it, and then you click on the bell that's next to it, that should allow you to subscribe. I think you need to have a YouTube account to do that. So once you click on that, it will take you through the process of subscribing to the channel. Okay, let's go back to Eunice. Okay, so I mean, you've spoken at length about assets, and I think where there is a lot of contention when it comes to relationship breakdown is to do with mainly with jointly acquired assets, and especially when it has to do with the home, which you've talked about. I mean, what I picked from what you said is that you've got to have something documented, especially if you are not married per se.
Mm.
You've got to have something documented. So if what are you saying? Are you saying that if I'm cohabiting with someone, I'm not married to that person, and at the beginning of that relationship, we put down we kind of signed a contract, if you want to put it that way, that said when we buy whatever I contribute in there is my bit, and then in case of an emergency, in case of a serious issue, this is my bit, and I'm entitled back to that. I'm entitled to that amount with interest based on from the time that we contributed to the time that breaks up. Does the law recognize such contrast, if I want to put it that way? Does it recognize in the court of law?
Okay, so this is very similar to what people would do when they're signing a prenup, and that's usually in the case of married couples. So usually, I know that if a married couple are getting married and one party seems to be wealthier than the other,
Hmm.
they would try and sign a prenup, what we call prenuptial agreement,
Hmm.
just so that they protect their assets in case of a relationship breakdown or in case of a divorce. And so, of course, if you sign a prenup because you want to protect your wealth, and the other party signs it without any legal advice, and it's like, okay, if that's what you're saying, I'm fine with it. I love you anyways. I'm not hoping for, I mean, the relationship or the marriage to break down at all. And so they sign it and they let go of it. And of course, things happen.
Okay.
And so when things happen and finally you decide to go your separate ways, the prenuptial agreement is not necessarily something that the UK, for instance, in England and Wales, our law doesn't uh, categorically recognize prenuptial agreement. But
Okay.
you have case laws over the years that have had these prenups in place. Of
Okay.
course, because these two people were aware when you were making such agreement, the court may consider
Hmm.
what was in the prenup, because
Okay.
most of the time the prenuptial agreements are done in such a way that it cannot consider everything that will happen in the future.
All right.
And so over time, circumstances change.
Change, yes.
Change. And
That's
of
correct.
course, once that happens, that means that those um, factors or those things that were put down in the agreement may no longer hold water, and so it becomes necessary that things are looked at differently. And so
Okay.
I say the court may, because there have been case laws where the court has considered
Hmm.
other prenuptial agreements. Of course, if they believe that the prenuptial agreement is something that was um, agreed to or signed without any third party legal advice, or while the person was under duress or whatever it
Hmm.
is, then of course they are going to say they'll put it aside because maybe the law will favor that person who is the partner who is making the application better than the prenup has favored them. So,
Okay.
of course, there will be some consideration in terms of prenuptial agreement,
Hmm.
although it's not legally binding
Okay.
here in the UK. I mean, I know of other European countries where prenuptial agreements are legally binding. So, regardless of whether you had third party legal advice or not, they will still hold you to the prenup that was signed. But in the
Okay.
UK, sentence that is not legally binding,
Recognized.
so that
Yeah.
it can recognize the fact that if somebody has made certain financial contributions, let's say over the period of marriage, you've been married for 10 years and they have stopped working to look after the kids and to look after the home, and now the relationship is no longer, then of course they will have to consider the needs, the financial needs, for instance, of the said couple and
Hmm.
the children as well. If they have shared responsibilities for the children, they'll have to consider things like the financial resources that each
Okay.
couple has. So if it is the woman who is working and the man stayed at home to look after the children, then of course it means that the woman has more financial capacity to be able to, of course, bring more of the income to the table. They can
Okay.
consider the standard of living. So if they were used to a certain lifestyle and they were used to going on holidays every holiday, school holiday, and of course this cannot be stopped, then of course the court will consider all of this as well. They will consider the duration of the marriage as
Marriage. Okay.
well, the age of the parties, of course. If they are very close to pension, then it means that of course the financial contribution will be assessed and how much they can make in terms of meeting those needs until they reach the age of pension, let's say.
Okay. Good.
And
Good. Okay,
I
I'm
was
sorry, I
going
have to
to,
come in here because
yeah.
we are running out of time now. We've just got literally got 1 or 2 minutes. We've got a couple of questions that I want to throw that has been put in by our audience. So there's a question put in that says that what kind of abuse is it if your spouse hasn't been speaking to you for about 6 months?
Okay, so if your spouse hasn't been speaking to you, then that could be categorized as emotional abuse, because of course you need that human interaction. You need to feel that this person is not neglecting you. And if this person has chosen not to speak to you for a long period of time, which happens quite often in relationships, of course, I consider that emotional abuse, because as human beings, we need interaction. And if that interaction is not being given, or we are not having that interaction, then of course it affects our mood, it affects the way
Okay.
that we look at things, and it affects your whole demeanor, basically.
Well, but what if you this? What if the person has offended you by saying something nasty to you, and you are waiting for them to come and apologize before you start talking to them, and they are not coming forward to apologize? So you are also waiting. Would you? Who is suffering the emotional abuse here? Because I have been things have been said to me that are not pleasant, and I've decided that I'm not going to speak to you until you've come to apologize. So who is suffering here now? Who is being abused?
Well, I can definitely say that one person is suffering. I'm not sure about the
Both of
other
us are
person.
suffering.
I'm not sure about the person who is has said the wrong thing to you. Because of course, if they said something to you and you are waiting for them to apologize,
Yeah.
they might be thinking, well, why are you not apologizing? And I mean, why are you not talking to me? But
Hmm.
in the case where, for instance, the person thinks, I'm not going to apologize, I'm going to talk to you anyway, but it's up to you to talk back. Then it makes it seem like you are the one who is not forgiving
No,
them.
I'm the one being abused here. The person hasn't apologized to me, and then I'm being asked to come and talk to them again. And then they'll do it again, and I'll have to endure it. And then I don't talk to them, and I've been being blamed or being blamed for causing domestic emotional
To
abuse
be
to them.
practical, of course, these things go on. I mean, in reality, I don't think anybody has lived this life not having anything bad said about them. So,
Okay, all right.
in a practical sense,
Okay,
um,
forgiveness,
yes, let's be honest, we
the
have to be forgiving. People
forgiving.
will
Okay,
say things you don't like, and a lot of it comes from the people that are closest to you.
okay,
It is your own family members who will say things to you that you don't like. So you
okay,
might as well just take it on the chin and
okay.
forgive them and move on.
Okay, okay, I understand that. Okay, there's another question here that says that can financial indiscipline be classified as an abuse?
It depends on what the person categorizes as financial indiscipline. So if
I'll try and explain it. I'm hoping that I can explain this, and I hope whoever puts in the question agrees with me here. So I'm saying that if two of us are married and we've got joint accounts, and the other one party is just spending and spending, going on sales, buying sales, and doing things and buying, spending the money, they are not disciplined with their money. Would the other party be under the considered as being abused?
Okay, so like you said, a joint account. There is a purpose for which the parties have a joint account. And I'm
Yeah.
sure usually with most couples, when you have a joint account, there is bills that needs to be paid. There
Yes.
is rent, there is mortgage. So when you take all your bills and you take everything out, it is what is left over that you can actually spend. So I don't think that anybody who is in their right frame of mind, knowing full well what the purpose of the joint account is for, would just overspend. Unless you are saying to me
Hmm.
that this person has no regard for the bills that
Yes.
have to be paid.
Before the bills come, they are spending their money. So
Has no regard for the bills that has to be
no,
paid
yeah,
and is just spending. I know some couples who believe traditionally that it is
uh-huh.
the man's duty to work and bring the toil home. And so,
Okay,
as a woman, she's there to look after the home and she's there to spend
and
the money
chill,
on,
go
on the
shopping,
home.
handbags, shoes, clothing, and then the man is sweating. Okay, Adam and Eve
So
days.
if you
Okay,
have
the
that
man was meant to
traditional mindset, then of course you will be struggling to make ends meet because if the woman is at home and you are the one bringing the bacon home,
uh-huh.
she is going to spend as she thinks is appropriate. And so, of course, I wouldn't classify that as abuse per
Okay,
se, but
all
I
right,
would say that, of course, it means that there has to be some. Guards in
consideration,
place. So you need to
discipline.
put some guards in place in terms
Okay,
of letting the other party be aware that, of course, there are responsibilities that have to be met. And so,
let me give you a scenario, Eunice. It's a case where I'm just adding to the question. The person is overspending, just spending the money anyhow. And I tried to talk to them, and they said I didn't speak to them well, so they're not speaking to me again. So now I am a recipient of an abuse, emotional abuse, because I'm not being spoken to. Because I've always complained that you're spending too much of the money that we put together for other things in the future. Anyway, let's not even go into that much. Let's say, we just got just 1 minute, literally 1 or 2 minutes, so we can round up this. Um, I always want to ask a question about wills, and if you could be very very brief on this one. What about wills? If in the event that the couple decide to go their separate ways during a breakdown, and they are jointly acquired assets, how should they approach the issue of wills? Here, just briefly for me.
okay, so just briefly, in terms of wills, of course, it will be a will be structured in such a way that it will consider both parties. So if, for instance, the husband and wife were the one that bought the property, and then the husband makes a will to say that he wants the property left in the name, or he wants the property left to the daughter, for instance, and the mother is not in agreement that it should be left with the daughter, then of course they need to make some sort of agreement,
Hmm.
because naturally, if there isn't a will, the property would have passed on to the living spouse or the surviving spouse.
Yes.
And so, if there is a will, then they both should be in agreement as to who gets what. If not, of course, the beneficial interest of the other party, who is the partner, will have to be taken first, and then the other beneficial interest of the person who is deceased will be transferred to the inheriting party. So if it's
Okay.
the daughter he left it to, then that share of his property will be given to the daughter instead of the whole property being given to the daughter.
Okay, all right. So we have literally run out of time now. So before you go, Eunice, one of the things that we have on this program that makes this program unique is that we put our resource persons on the spot at the end of the program. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Now, one of the things that you included in your bio when you sent the bio to me was that you have a Yoruba heritage. And for Yoruba, somebody who has a Yoruba heritage, I expect you to learn to know some words in Yoruba. So we're going to ask you to sing a song in Yoruba for us. Either you sing a song in Yoruba or you say a few things. You promote this program in Yoruba for us. So it's
Oh
the
my
floor is yours.
goodness.
Choose between the two. Which one you want to do?
So when I said I have Yoruba heritage, it meant that it was heritage, so it's inherited. So it's one of those things where you say that you've inherited something, but it's not actually yours.
Okay.
So I inherited it. The only Yoruba word I know is pele,
Well,
pele, oh,
I know that
pele.
one. I know that one. So this is making me Yoruba, is it? I know Pele. Pele is sorry, or. Oh, unit. Okay, all right. So you don't know any song in Yoruba or anything.
No, I don't. Unfortunately, I think I have to get my Yoruba friends to teach me.
Okay, all right. You know what? For your punishment, you're going to come on the program again. Next time you come on the program, we're going to make you actually sing and promote the program in Yoruba. Two things at the next time you appear on the program. Anyway, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We want to say a big thank you to Mrs. Eunice Achampon for coming on to the program. It's been really insightful. It's been really insightful. We've learned a few things. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go through all the details, but the things about making sure that you have, what I pick from this is that make sure you have things documented all the time, whether you are a married couple or people living cohabiting. Make sure that you're documenting things, especially when you start acquiring assets jointly. And you also talk about the children and some of the things that the children have the ability to do as young adults, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much. Before we go off, we once again want to remind our audience about who is coming next on the Business and Experts Forum on the 30th of August. That is exactly 2 weeks from today. We're going to have our Dr. Abina Osela, who is a consultant clinical neurophysiologist and has done extensive research work in motor neuron diseases. He will be talking to us about health and basically focusing more on the challenges that families and the global health system face as a result of the pandemic and how best to deal with those challenges. So please join us on the 30th of August to gain more knowledge on health and a life during and after the pandemic. You may not want to miss that one. Thank you very much, Eunice, and I also say every week, thank you very much for you out there, the audience. You are the ones that make this program tick. Without you, this program is no program. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Basically, go to the channel, see the red subscribe written there, click on it, and there's a bell next to that. Click on that bell so that when there is an episode, we schedule it, you get a notification for the episode. So thank you very much. It was a slightly delayed time for this program, but I'm sure that it's been very insightful for you, just as it has been for me. So until next time, when we come on episode 5 of season 1 on the 30th of August, when we have our Dr. Abina, this is May Marcus saying have a good week and bye for now.